Good day. My name is Brad of Chai Sox Cardboard, and I am coming at you from a short work trip. It's the evening of February 7th, 2025, and I had a few hours to myself, and I was planning to record some content. I was going to record kind of my normal content, the Confessions of a Vintage Flipper, and the next episode of the Season in a Set project. But while I was kind of preparing to do that, I ran across a new channel, Brent Richards and Baseball Cards, at Brent Richards Baseball Cards. And he had a VR contest that was ending tomorrow. Happy birthday, happy 50th tomorrow, Brent. He had a VR submission that was ending tomorrow, and a sweet prize for the content creator that wins. Kind of a King, well, not kind of, definitely a Ken Griffey Jr. themed prize that is headlined by a signed baseball. And I thought to myself, it's fate. I happened to stumble upon this channel. I subscribed to it. He's got a VR contest that ends tomorrow, and it's got a cool prize, and I've got a story to tell. So I figured instead of starting my regularly scheduled content, which maybe I'll still do later tonight, or I might just run out of energy and do it later, I thought I would throw my hat in the ring and try and win this VR. So the topic is best memory or favorite day at the ballpark. And like most collectors who want to show off their collection or their stories, I'm going to cheat a little bit and talk about not my best day at the ballpark, although it culminates in a best day, but more like the best season at the ballpark. And that's 2005 Chicago White Sox season, the only World Series championship team of anyone's lifetime. If you're watching this, unless you're 109 years old and watching this, you were not alive for any White Sox World Series victory other than 2005, and I was there for a lot of that season, and so that season and into the fall, into October, that's my favorite day at the ballpark, or days at the ballpark. I had started following the White Sox in the early 1990s when I moved to the Chicagoland area, and I had followed them, becoming a little bit more serious in my fandom as I reached my high school age. I remember in 2000, the White Sox went to the playoffs for the first time that I could really remember. They had gone in '93, but I was only 8 years old at the time, and I had just moved to Chicago, and I wasn't really fully into my fandom there in 1993. So in 2000, they go to the playoffs, and I was a freshman in high school, and I begged my dad to take me out of school and let me go to a playoff game, and he did not. Maybe there was wisdom in that. I'm still not entirely sure that I see it, but to add insult to injury, he actually got box seats at the playoff game as part of a work function, and so he went to the playoff game, and I was stuck going to whatever classes I had in the fall of 2000. And so by the time 2005 rolls around, this is the next opportunity to go to a White Sox playoff game, and I was in college at the time, and I was in college about 2.5 hours south of Sox Park in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. And I had split season tickets to the White Sox that season. If you're not familiar, I don't know if any other teams did this, but the White Sox did a thing called split season tickets, and basically it was a lot of the benefits of season tickets, but you only had to buy in for a third of the season. So instead of 81 games, you're getting 27 games, and I got the weekend version of it. So I had tickets to basically every single White Sox weekend home game, and in 2005, and I went to almost all of them, and then a few extras. So I probably missed a few of my season tickets and went to a few extras, and in the end, I probably went to about a third of their home games that year, about 27 games. And as part of because I was a split season ticket holder, I could buy I had could buy at face value one set of 2 tickets to one game of each series in the playoffs. And so I was at game 1 of the American League Division Series against against the Red Sox, Game 2 of the American League Championship Series against the Angels, and Game 2 of the World Series against the Houston Astros, who, for those old enough to remember, were in the National League at the time. So that was the World Series matchup. And so that first game, I called myself out of school. I ditched class down at U of I and drove north and went to an afternoon baseball game. It was the first playoff game of any kind that I had ever been to in my life, and it was wonderful. It was a great experience. It was still pretty warm, I recall, that day. I think the game started in the mid-afternoon, and it was still pretty warm. And the White Sox got off to a great start. One of my favorite players in the bottom of the first kind of set the table for the rest of the day. I'll show you that right now.
It's this one to left center field. Back it goes. Back. Gone! Boy, what a first inning here for the White Sox. A 5 spot against Matt Clement in Boston. You wouldn't know that Chicago hit more homers than Boston. Just one more. That was a big home run by Pierzynski.
So that was A.J. Pierzynski, one of my, let's say, favorite 4 players on that team. Mark Burley would have been number 1. Frank Thomas, I'm counting Frank Thomas as on the team, but for that year he wasn't really a favorite because he was injured a lot of the year. He only played, I don't know, like 40 or 50 games kind of in the middle of the year, and he wasn't playing in the playoffs. And so A.J. Pierzynski, Mark Burley, Paul Konerko, and Joe Crede were my favorite players on that team. And so one of them there, A.J. Pierzynski, hits the 3-run shot in the bottom of the first to go up 5-0 in their first playoff game that I had ever been to. And it was off to the races from there. They won 14-2. And then they swept the Red Sox the remainder of the series. And so from there, they're on to the American League Championship Series against the Los Angeles Angels. And I was funds were getting a little bit tight at this point. I worked when I was in college, and I didn't have a lot of expenses, but the split season tickets were expensive and the playoff tickets were expensive. And I had taken my girlfriend, now wife of 17 years, to the first game, the game that we just saw. And by the American League Championship Series, I was starting to think to myself that funds are getting tight. And so what I ended up doing was going to the game by myself, scalping the 2 good tickets that I had in the lower deck and buying a single seat in the upper deck for less than the face value of one of my tickets. And so I ended up making money on that game 2 of the ALCS. The White Sox had lost game 1, and so they were down in the series 1-0, and so they really had to take game 2, or it was going to be very, very difficult to then go on the road and come away with a series victory. And so for those that maybe don't remember in great detail the 2005 playoffs, there was a pretty controversial play involving, again, one of my favorite players. Here we go.
Escobar, another strikeout. Pierzynski is going down to first. The home plate umpire has now made a call and safe, and the Angels are already off the field.
Well, if Josh Paul made the catch, which he did, then it's a strikeout. Pierzynski's thinking, hey, why not? The home plate umpire couldn't make the call. And this might be the best thing for instant replay in baseball that's happened and occurred this postseason, because clearly he caught the ball and the catcher knows whether it's a short hop or you catch it cleanly, whether there's leather between the dirt.
He's going. They don't pitch out. Strike 2. But down to second is Pablo Ozuna.
Such a good jump, no play.
And that's into the left field corner. This ball is off the wall. The White Sox have won, and this only begins what will be an argument. Total frustration and disgust on the part of the Angels on that call, which allowed the ninth inning to continue. Ozuna steals second, and Creedy wins it with a ball off the left field wall. Creedy delivers. What a good at-bat by Creedy. He let Ozuna steal. He took 2 pitches to 2 strikes against Escobar, who had struck out 5 in 3 innings, and then rockets a ball off the wall. Officially scored an RBI double off the bat of Creedy.
So, not only does one of my favorite players, AJ Pierzynski, do we say cheat his way onto first base? You choose your own word. But he makes his way onto first base, extends the inning. He gets pinch run for by Pablo Ozuna, who steals a base, and then another one of my top 4 favorite players from the from the season hits the walk-off double to win the game. Not only that, but a third of my favorite players from that season, Mark Burley, pitched a complete game in Game 2. And then the White Sox went on to throw 3 more complete games. So 4 complete games in a row in a single playoff series. I'm certain that has not been done since. I would be astounded if it's ever done again. Those were Freddie Garcia, Jose Contreras, and hold on, let me just get that last name. Got to give them credit. Oh, John Garland. So, Mark Burley, John Garland, Freddie Garcia, and Jose Contreras combined to pitch 4 consecutive complete games to win the American League Championship Series 4-1, and the White Sox are going to the World Series. And I've got to come up with the money to buy World Series tickets, which I do. And I get tickets to Game 2 of the 2005 World Series. And this time, I don't sell the tickets and go by myself. I again bring my girlfriend of a few years at the time and my wife of 17 years now, and we are at Game 2 of the World Series. And this is my favorite day at the ballpark. I've already covered this once on this channel, and so in a minute I'll just play a portion of that episode. But just to set the scene, it's dreary, it's rainy, it's gross. And the ballpark is just absolutely electric. And this is a high-scoring game. And by the time we get into the 7th inning, the bottom of the 7th inning, the White Sox are down 4-2, and Paul Konerko steps to the plate. For those that maybe don't surf the internet for 2005 World Series highlights, I just want to show a couple from Game 2. This was a game that I was at.
And he inherits bases loaded, 2 out. With Konerko on. And he rips one in the left. Konerko.
All right, so I am right over here somewhere. If I'm not on the screen, I'm maybe half a section over to the left. But I'm in those left field bleachers for Paul Konerko's grand slam in the 7th inning there.
Go, grand slam!
So that puts the Sox up 6-4, and everybody is going nuts. It is like a college football game after that, like the student section of a college football game. From that point on in that game, nobody sat down in the outfield bleachers where I was sitting. We stood for the remainder of the game. Unfortunately for the White Sox, in the top of the 9th, the Astros scored 2 runs. It was a single by Jose Vizcaino, scoring Jeff Bagwell and Chris Burke, and So we go into the bottom of the ninth, tie game, 6-6, and Juan Uribe flies out, and that brings Scott Podsednik to the plate. Scott Podsednik was a career 7-WAR player. He had some good seasons. He didn't have much power. He could hit for a little bit of power. He hit 42 home runs in his career, but he had 0 regular season home runs in the 2005 season. He had actually hit one in that 14-2 shellacking of the Boston Red Sox in Game 1 of the ALDS, but he had 0 regular season home runs in 2005, and up he comes to the plate. Here it is.
Do you, sir, buy into the theory that people said with regard to Lidge, it would have been nice to get Lidge in the game in Game 6 in St. Louis in the NLCS to get that taste out of his mouth from the Pujols home run?
I don't think that taste is there.
Podsednik hits one to deep right center field. Back at the wall. This ball is gone. Podsednik goes deep. His second home run of the postseason. And the White Sox win it 7-6. Lidge has a new taste.
The taste might be there now. Scott Podsednik had no home runs this season. None. Unbelievable.
So the White Sox win Game 2. They go on to win Games 3 and 4 in Houston. They don't come back to Chicago, which I've always been kind of bummed that they didn't win it in Chicago. However, if they had come back to Chicago, I don't know how I would have swung getting tickets to a Game 6 or a Game 7, and so that would have been heartbreaking to not be there for a game in Chicago. As it stands, I think I was at the most significant home White Sox game maybe in the history of the Chicago White Sox. I think the only ones you could compare them to would be other World Series appearances, and so we're talking 1959, which they lost, 1919, which was the Black Sox scandal, and then 1917 was the one that they won before that, the last one they won before that. So I'm probably one of the, I've got to be amongst the only people on the earth who have been at the most important home White Sox game of their lifetime. It's something that has been really special to me in the now coming up on the 20-year anniversary of that team. It's been really special to me for those 20 years. That Game 2, other than things like the birth of my children, my marriage to my wife, other than days that involve loved ones, people that I actually know and that love me back, that Game 2 of the 2005 World Series was probably the most enjoyable day of my life. It's certainly the most enjoyable sports moment of my life, and that includes the sports that I played. And so that was my best day at the ballpark. To be honest, I'm not sure that I'm not sure I'm as big a White Sox fan today, if not for that team. It is not easy to be a White Sox fan these days. They just set a single season record for losses. They are horribly mismanaged. It's just an embarrassment of an organization right now. So am I a White Sox fan without the 2005 White Sox? I'm not sure. And if I'm not a White Sox fan today, am I collecting White Sox cards? I don't think so. I'm not sure why I would. And if I'm not collecting White Sox cards, am I collecting cards at all? Collecting White Sox, I collect sets and I collect Hall of Famers, but collecting vintage White Sox cards is like the foundation of my collecting. So is it a stretch to say that without that Game 2 2005 World Series experience, I'm not sitting here with this Nelly Fox? I'm not sure that's a stretch. I don't know that I would have this card and enjoy it and have this as part of my life without that game. And would I have this 1965 Topps 8.5 Fred Talbot? Almost certainly not. I mean, I don't know why anyone would collect Fred Talbot in a White Sox uniform if they weren't collecting White Sox cards. Fred Talbot didn't even play for the White Sox in 1965, but I have to have the card because he's in a White Sox uniform. Yeah, so that is the best day at the ballpark that I've ever had. I hope, Brent, I hope that my submission gets good consideration. I really appreciate you putting on this contest, and I look forward to seeing some of the other submissions, as I know you do. To the winner, congratulations, and to the rest of us, it was fun to put this together. Thanks for doing it, Brent. And as always, collect what you love, flip what you like.